Cenk Uygur, can we talk about the week that was and what the hell is to come? Cenk Uygur from the Young Turks. I love having you on. And by the way, I love seeing you lose your mind on these panels, especially on Piers Morgan. First, before we get to it, why on earth do you go on that show? Because I know your blood pressure is going to rise and you're going to get into a fight. Why do you do it, Cenk? Why do you do it to yourself?
Simple answer. I like fights. I've liked fighting my whole life. I grew up in Jersey. I'm a Turk. My name in Turkish literally means war. So I like calm, reasonable, intellectual conversations. I also like brawls. So that's who I am.
Yeah. Okay. So that gives us a good place to start. Speaking of wars, the person who would potentially keep us out of wars or make sure that we, had all of the equipment and everything that we needed in case we were to get into a war would be the Secretary of Defense. All right. We're going to get to the Matt Gaetz of it all, the Pam Bondi of it all. But let's start there with the Pete Hegseth of it all. Okay. The former Fox News morning show anchor who could be the Secretary of Defense of the United States. This is him yesterday talking to reporters, being questioned by reporters, and then you and I will go through the prospects, what's in this police report about the alleged SA, and on and on and on. But this is him yesterday being approached by reporters right after he went to speak to people in Washington about his nomination. Here it is.
Take absolutely nothing for granted, and we welcome the opportunity to talk to any senator that wants to talk to us.
Did you sexually assault a woman in Monterey, California?
I have, as far as the media is concerned, I'll keep this very simple. The matter was fully investigated, and I was completely cleared, and that's where I'm going to leave it. Thank you very much. Okay,
so when he says the matter was fully investigated, I don't remember the matter being adjudicated. Does he mean like maybe police spoke to him and then they decided not to press charges, whatever? What does he mean by the matter has been fully investigated? Does he feel that he's been exonerated?
Well, I actually took something a little bit different out of that, Don. He did a settlement with that woman, and settlements are a tricky business. Sometimes if they're low, that was just to get rid of the case. If they paid a lot, then it was that he probably did it, right? But we don't know what the amount is. But part of the settlement might have been that he can't deny it. That's why he doesn't give a clear, no, I didn't do it. Instead, he says it's been settled. And of course, you know what he means by settled, that the cops looked into it and decided not to charge him. Does that mean that it was adjudicated? No, of course not. And there could be many different reasons why the cops.
I missed the language. Did he say settled or did he say been investigated?
I guess investigated, yeah. But his spokesperson or his lawyer put out a statement that was even more untrue. He said that the authorities proved that the charges were false. They did no such thing. Right. They just said that they're not charging him. But Don, this is a complicated case. And, I looked into all the details of it, unfortunately, and it's really kind of impossible to tell what happened. And so I don't know what to do with it, because if he did it, then he's a terrible guy, and it sucks that we can't show it definitively. If he didn't do it, then it sucks in the other direction, and he's being smeared. Now, I got no love for Hegseth. I don't think he should be defense secretary, but I just don't know what to do with these cases where there's no way we could know what actually happened.
Yeah, look, I understand that, because how do you know what's true, what's false? The names have been right. You can't put out an alleged victim's name, right? Correct. And so a lot of it is as sort of akin to anonymous sources in journalism. Some of the stuff has been sealed. There is a non-disclosure agreement, right, that both sides have to abide by, which means some of the language that you said he's using, they've got to be careful with. If it is indeed false, then where does one go to get their reputation back? Correct?
Yep.
And if it is true, then shouldn't the American people, especially if this person is still under consideration to be the defense secretary, shouldn't they know somehow? There should be some sort of transparency involved? I understand what you're saying, but
so look, so Don, I hear you, and so there's a good argument to be made that we should fully air it out during the hearings and see if the person is willing to testify against them, etc. But I don't want to lose track at the same time of the fact that he shouldn't be defense secretary for other reasons.
Right.
So the number one concern that I have is that he has talked about domestic enemies, and he's a 100% Trump loyalist. And so so for Secretary of Defense, normally we're worried about foreign policy and what their views are there. In this case, his views are irrelevant in foreign policy because Trump's going to decide everything anyway. What's really relevant is when Trump says use the military inside the U.S., does he say no or does he say yes? And I'm very worried with Hegseth that he is going to say yes. And then when Trump takes the next step and says, now, not just undocumented immigrants, but anyone who dares to protest us, right? Okay, and so that should be the number one concern about Pete Hegseth, because that's actually also related to his job and affects all of us.
Do you think that then these allegations, you think it's a distraction, or is it like a side thing?
Impossible to tell, Don. Impossible, right? Because look, there is an element here, Don, of whenever someone is not liked within very loosely the establishment, right? We'll call it that. It's a blob. It's not one specific thing. But if they cross powerful people, you will get a sex charge, guaranteed. Okay. And so then the question is, how bad is it, right? And how real is it? How true is it? So a great example of this is Eliot Spitzer. He was the sheriff of Wall Street, a Democrat. He was the governor, and earlier than that, attorney general, and really held Wall Street accountable, and was actually one of the best Democrats of my lifetime in holding Wall Street accountable.
And fought against prostitution, and then became client number 9.
Exactly. And then all of a sudden, and there's a whole, as you're pointing out, a Netflix movie about this, documentary, where the rich bankers said, yeah, we targeted him, and we dug and dug and dug until we found out that he was visiting these prostitutes, and then we hung him out to dry.
Okay, but hold on, Cenk. I understand what you're saying. I get it. And trust me, I totally understand, and I agree with what you're saying. But this appears to be different because this came from a normal, I believe, sort of background check for him being nominated to become the defense secretary. And had he disclosed this before, it may not have come out because he may not have been nominated. And Trump would have said, okay, fine, keep your secrets and keep your job at Fox News and move on. So, I mean, it seems like this would be Republicans or the Trump folks. If you're saying what you're saying, wouldn't this be the Trump folks then who are bringing these charges against him rather than Democrats?
So, no, but Don, when they go digging, the question isn't, are they just making it up? It's just sometimes when you scratch the surface with someone like Hegseth, something like this pops up. Sometimes, like with Spitzer, you have to hire private investigators and dig more and dig more, right? So again, it's not to say that it didn't happen or that it's unfair. It's to say that if, in situations like this, like Matt Gaetz, another great example. So if he slept with a 17-year-old, which, there seems to be pretty solid evidence publicly that he might have, that's terrible, right? And it's totally fair to take that into account, and not just about his character, but also, is he going to enforce the laws if he had trouble with that law, right? Yeah. And so I understand all that, but nevertheless, here's another great example: Madison Cawthorn. So apparently they had a secret file on him with all sorts of pictures of him dressed up as a woman and at parties and all this stuff, right?
They released a video of him in bed with his buddy, and they were sort of horsing around and that kind of thing. Yeah.
And so they apparently had that file.
I understand what you're saying, but let's listen to what I'm saying. Do you believe that had he not been nominated for the defense secretary, that this would have even come out?
No, it would have never come out. Yeah, probably.
Yeah. So then maybe he should have disclosed it, because then it's not someone going and digging into his background. It's him saying, maybe he should have had the wherewithal to say, this shit's going to come out because they're going to do a deep background check. My own party and the person who I support, the Trump folks, have to do a deep background check. And this came up during that deep background check. This wasn't like Democrats who were targeting him. This is kind of his own making. You understand what I'm saying?
I do. And so in this case,
whether it's true or not, I'm not saying if it's true or not. Yeah, I'm just,
Yeah. So in this case, since it's so clearly going to come out because it was a police report, you're right. He could have handled it better for sure, either by not going in the first place if he's worried about that, or disclosing it so that it's not revealed. He says it himself. But Don, the reason why all this stuff for Hegseth I don't think is going to be relevant is even if it's true he's accused of sexual assault. Well, Donald Trump was already found liable for sexual assault. So you think he's going to care? He's not going to care. Do the people supporting him care? They don't care. So, and it would be weird to say, oh, I can't believe you did a sexual assault like I did, so I don't want you as my defense secretary.
Yeah, it's in his interest to have Hegseth win, because then it's sort of Donald Trump, it's a win for him as well. See how these things, we get accused of these things and they're not necessarily true, or they're going back in our history and trying to cancel us. I get what you're saying. And I believe that, your rationale there, your logic is correct. Doesn't mean that I think it's right or you, but I understand what you're saying. It's just interesting that we're at this point. I was speaking to someone, a Republican, a conservative yesterday, and they said, and I was asking him about Pete Hegseth, and he said, I think he's going to get the nomination. I think he's going to become the defense secretary, because I think that society, we've moved beyond these things and people don't care about them. Do you agree?
Yeah, well, yeah. So there's another part of that. That's part of the formula. And unfortunately, I think that person is right. I think that people aren't going to care for a number of reasons. Number one, they just proved to you that they didn't care in terms of the voting, right? It's not like it was unclear. Donald Trump definitely did the sexual assault. He was found liable of it by a jury of his peers. And he's on tape as saying, yeah, I grab him by the genitals and I don't care if they consent or not. Yeah. And so there's no question that unfortunately the American people are past it, even if it's true. But since there's been so many charges, a lot of people just don't believe any charges anymore. So that's another section of the population that's not going to care. That's part of the reason why I'm saying the people that oppose Hegseth or Gaetz or any of these folks shouldn't put all their eggs in this basket, because that dog's probably not going to hunt, even if you think it's unfair, right? Mm-hmm. So keep in mind, the real problem with Hegseth is he might use the United States military against the people on the left that he views to be domestic enemies.
Okay. This is just coming in as you and I are taping this, okay? In his first interview since withdrawing his name as AG, Matt Gaetz tells Charlie Kirk he will not be rejoining Congress, because thought that he might rejoin because he resigned from the 118th Congress, right? He's been reelected to the 119th Congress, and you can not resign from something that doesn't exist yet, right? Because that Congress has not been sworn in and it's not a thing. So I am still going to be in the fight, but I'm going to be from a new perch. I do not intend to join the 119th Congress. That was a question. What do you think of that?
Yeah, well, it's not just that. It's that people were speculating that he might be nominated for Rubio's seat, not nominated, but appointed by DeSantis. And so then he would become the senator. He'd get a promotion, a senator from Florida. But that'll go to Lara Trump. And so he's saying, I'm not going back into Congress. And of course, the reason he's not is because he's dying to get past these allegations of the 17-year-old, because that's toxic. Like paying for sex these days, again, whether we agree or disagree, is not a deal breaker. And honestly, the paying for sex part, I don't think should be a deal breaker. But the 17-year-old's a deal breaker. And so he's desperate to get past that. That's why he's not going back into Congress.
With a consenting adult, right? If because there are places in Nevada, as we know, it's okay. Love legal age. 2, 3, whatever, how many consenting adults, that's your business. And so I understand that. If you're a consenting adult, I kind of agree. What happens in your bedroom or wherever it is, if there are 2 consenting adults, as long as it's legal, then stay out of the business of that. Okay, so Matt Gaetz dropped out after this, and I think there was a second allegation, right, that was going to come to light, allegedly of a 17-year-old, right? And then, again, very similar to the first allegation of a 17-year-old. And now they're still considering in Congress whether or not to release that report from the Oversight Committee. We'll see if that's going to happen. Chances are, I believe, since the Speaker of the House said he's no longer in Congress, therefore it should not be released, I don't think it's going to see the light of day unless somebody leaks it. I don't know if you disagree with that, but yes or no, we can move on, because I want to ask you about something else.
Well, I thought Marjorie Taylor Greene said something interesting, which is that she said, if you release it, I'm going to release the other files that we have on Republicans, which made me think, wait, what other files do you have on Republicans?
Yeah, so I say release it now because I want to know, but go.
Yeah, yeah. So it probably won't get released, but it'll probably get leaked
Yes.
because he has too many Republican enemies in the House and the Senate for it not to get leaked at some point.
Well, that's what I was saying to people who were saying this is a witch hunt by Democrats. I said the calls are coming from inside the House. These are Republicans who
That's
are.
right.
He is universally disliked between Democrats and Republicans in Washington. So now the person who's has been put as an appointee to take his place, at least on the appointee list, is Pam Bondi, right? And we know Pam Bondi. What was Pam? Was she the Attorney General?
Yes.
In Florida, she became that, but there's a whole history that they have. So do you think that she is going to be approved? And what do you think of their history? Because I think we need to talk about their history before we even go there, because people don't know. Somehow she's being put up as, oh, this is a normal person. This is someone who is, just a regular old Republican. But they've got a history that I think that should be told before we even start to talk about whether she's normal or not, and whether she's going to get approval or not, pass the approval process.
Yeah. So her two defining traits are she's a loyalist to Donald Trump, and
Right.
she's open for business. So her career is defined by corruption. But those are the reasons why she'll get confirmed easily.
You think so? Stop right there. I want to play this, and then I want to get your response. This is from a report, I believe it was back in 2019, that sort of lays out how we got here with Pam Bondi. It's a local news report from Florida. Here it is.
But as 10 News reporter Phil Buck explains, the two have a controversial history dating back to before Trump ever jumped into the presidential race.
Well, President Trump, he knows he has an ally in Pam Bondi, the Tampa native and the former state AJ. She's no stranger to scandals involving both of them. So let's pick things up in September 2013. Bondi's office announces she's looking into investigating complaints against Trump University and its affiliates. 4 days later, and Justice for All, which was a political group backing Bondi's re-election campaign, they get a check for $25,000 from the nonprofit Trump Foundation. A few weeks later, well, Bondi says, yeah, she's actually not going to file suit against Trump over those Trump University complaints. Fast forward now to March 2016, a campaign rally right here in Tampa. Bondi gets up on stage and endorses Donald Trump for president. The following week, Trump representatives, they acknowledged that illegal donation. They blamed it on a series of clerical errors. And then in July, Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington, they file a complaint asking for an investigation into whether or not Bondi broke the law by not pursuing legal action against Trump University. A couple of months later, the Washington Post reports that the IRS fined the Trump Foundation for that illegal donation. Less than 2 weeks after that, September 13th, 2016, Crew then files criminal bribery complaints against both Trump and Bondi with the Department of Justice. So now let's fast forward another 2 years. That brings us up to 2018, December. Trump is now the president, and the Trump Foundation officially shuts down amid all of this controversy. And then we skip again ahead to just last week. On Wednesday, we start to hear reports coming out that Bondi is going to be joining the White House communications team. And then on Thursday of last week, a judge orders the president to pay $2 million for misusing his nonprofit, the Trump Foundation, to further his campaign for president. So those are all the dots. Doesn't take a whole lot of effort to connect them all.
So, Cenk, so when we sit around, when I see all of these panels on like cable news, and they're all going, well, let's just talk about it. I mean, she's a loyalist and he should have a loyalist in his campaign. I'm like, well, hey, guys, what about the really important part here? The corruption.
100%. But that's why she's going to pass easily.
Yeah.
Because first of all, for Republicans, her being a diehard Trump loyalist, the law be damned, is a huge positive, not a negative. And then her willing to take money and do whatever donors say is another giant positive for Republicans. So they don't view that in the same way that we do. They view that as, oh, there you go. That's a colleague of mine, a co-conspirator, if you will. But the reason why she's going to pass easily is because Democrats also hate talking about corruption. So they'll barely touch that issue. They'll try to find a sex scandal. They'll try to find a traffic court violation, but they're not going to want to talk about corruption because they also take giant amounts of money from corporate donors. Now, and it's not as illegal and brazen as what Pam Bondi and Donald Trump did, but I know Democratic senators, and they hate that topic. And so my guess is it'll barely come up, even though it should be the #1 focus of the hearings.
So Matt Gaetz didn't make it. You believe Pam Bondi's going to make it? Do you think Hegseth is going to make it?
Oof. Hegseth's still on the fence. I'm not positive. I'd say 55-45 he'll pass.
Yeah.
Bondi's at nearly 100%. And the Republicans will use identity politics with her too. First female attorney general. Are you guys sexist? Blah, 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 blah.
Oh
like
my
all sorts
God.
of nonsense, non-relevant things. So, and by the way, that corruption she did with Trump is not the only thing. She said she delayed a death penalty execution. And I was like, oh, she delayed an execution. Is that because she had moral qualms about it? No, because she had to go to a campaign fundraiser. And she said, let's execute the guy after my fundraiser. That's who Pam Bondi is.
Oh my gosh. What about Tulsi Gabbard? Does she make it?
Oh my God. Right at 50-50. Because look, I don't trust her with our intelligence at all. And my guess is that there's a lot of folks who are also concerned that intelligence is not going to stay in the House if Tulsi Gabbard's in charge. So, but I don't know who wins today.
Republicans are doing. I know that we had on an earlier show that we did. We had a soundbite from Nikki Haley who's saying that it's that she was dangerous and warning or whatever. I mean, I don't know if what Nikki Haley says holds any water or she has any clout among Republicans anymore. But there are Republicans who are saying, you know what, Tulsi Gabbard is dangerous. So.
Yeah. Look, remember, that's old school versus new school in the Republican Party. The old school is core establishment, neocons, etc. And of course, I don't like that camp. But there is one thing they're correctly concerned about, which is she's done some awfully strange things with Russia and Syria and all these. I mean, defending Syria out of nowhere. It's just so weird. And look, this is the uncomfortable things people aren't supposed to talk about, but she's in a cult. She's in a weird Hindu cult. And so it's a bit problematic to have someone in charge of our intelligence who's brainwashed and in a cult. That's a giant problem. So, but I know you're not allowed to say things like that. Oh my God, that's her beliefs. No, it's not normal Hinduism. I have 1,000 Hindu friends. It's a cult led by some white guy in Hawaii who's taken on Hinduism. By the way, absolutely despises Muslims and is not actually anti-war. So she'll get us into more wars as long as it's Muslims we're killing. She's hugely problematic. Those things won't bother Congress, but the Russia, Syria stuff might.
Yeah, that was my question. Is that even going to bother them? It should. I'm not saying it shouldn't, but if that's even going to bother them. I want to ask you about something. I don't know how you feel about this, Cenk, but for me, I find it reprehensible. And the person I find reprehensible is what I'm calling I hate to call it the donkey of the week or whatever, because that's a Charlemagne thing. But I just find this is like the biggest clout chasing, attention grabbing, thirsty thing that I have seen coming out of Washington in a long time. Please play the soundbite of this woman that I'm talking about.
Hey guys, I am at the airport making my way back home to the low country in South Carolina. I just spoke at an event with a couple hundred people. Some trans lunatic tried to rush the stage and attack me. And he is just making the case for me that we don't want penises in women's spaces. F off. And I just had a woman come up to me and get in my face about it, and I told her to F right off. I'm not going to tolerate it, and I'm going to fight harder and bigger than ever before. I will be the giant you can't take out, and you can't bully me into submission.
Okay, so here's the thing. I understand that people may have some issues when it comes to trans and that we need to work those things out. To me, this is a solution in search of a problem. When you have, how many members of Congress do you have? The woman has her own private restroom as it is. And I don't understand this issue. And by the way, this whole trans issue for most cities, states, town, municipalities in the country, there is zero problem, zero issues. Most people don't even come in contact with trans people. Why is she doing this? Because if you look at, I'll play Sarah McBride in a second, but is she doing this for the reasons that I believe is that she just wants to be on the TV? She wants an issue that puts her at the top of the feeds, and this gets her attention for someone who is thirsty for attention.
100%. So look, she doesn't actually care about the issue, and she doesn't actually care about any principles. She used to be anti-Trump. Now she's pro-Trump. She's just pro-attention, whatever gets her attention. And so she knows that if she plays these identity politics and the cultural wars, that our side's going to get pissed off, and she's going to get a lot of attention because of it. So she does that cheap, dirty trick with the bathrooms are only for biological women, et cetera, as if that's like a giant problem in Congress.
Is that but how does she know? This is what I want to say, Cenk. Okay. Two things. One is that she's using her status or history, as she said, she's an SA survivor, right? So am I. But I think that saying that that's going to trigger her, I'm not buying it as a survivor myself. Number one, Sarah McBride presents as a woman, right? And so if she didn't know who she was, would she even have an idea? And first of all, and second of all of the folks who are in Washington right now sharing spaces with her, does she know what all of their genitalia is? Has she gone and said, wait, before you go into this bathroom, let me check to see what you are? Do you understand what I'm saying?
100%. Look, there's three different massive issues with her explanation. So number one, who does most sexual assaults in bathrooms? Straight males.
Yes.
Okay, so like if we're worried about sexual assault in bathrooms, we'd ban guys from bathrooms. So like period. Like how many cases have there been of like a trans person attacking someone in a bathroom? Maybe like I've covered the news at a microscopic level for the last quarter century, right? I think I've heard of one case, literally one case in 25 years out of 330 million people. Whereas sexual assault by a guy in a bathroom, I mean, throw a rock and you'll hit one, right? So it's not about sexual assault. That's just a flat out lie, okay? Second of all, the minute Sarah McBride or any other trans woman walks into a guy's bathroom, then they're going to flip out over that.
Right.
And they're like, oh my God, what's she doing? It's like a woman in a man's bathroom.
Right.
Exactly, you morons. Let her go to the women's bathroom. Yeah. And then the last part of it is actually potentially even the worst, because when they do this at the school level, at the high school level, then somebody's got to check the genitalia of the kids. What are you perverts doing? What are you guys doing? Are you crazy? Right? No, we're not checking the genitalia of the kids. We're not going to do that. Get the hell out of our private lives. And what happened to the Republicans claiming that, oh, we're all about freedom and we don't want tyrannical government in our business? Well, it doesn't get any more tyrannical government than Uncle Sam wanting to peek up your skirt.
Amen. Or in your zipper, right? Okay, so this is what I believe. This is a master class in communications and in responding, and I believe this is the patriotic thing to do, especially as a public servant. So play the soundbite of Sarah McBride's response.
Let's be clear. The party that was focused on culture wars, the party that was focused on trans people, was the Republican Party. It was Donald Trump. It was the $100 million, $200 million that they spent on television ads. But I want to be clear, I do not believe, from what I've seen in Delaware, that voters in my state were responding to those attacks. Delaware is in the Philadelphia media market, so we were seeing those ads that Donald Trump clearly prioritized and focused in with regard to the culture wars. What I was hearing from voters across the state of Delaware, my district is urban, suburban, and rural. It looks like America. And what I was hearing was not the ads that Donald Trump was putting on the air. What I was hearing from folks is the need to build an economy that works for everyone. What I was hearing was that the American dream is increasingly unaffordable and inaccessible. What I was hearing was that we need to guarantee affordable health care, housing, and child care for every person in this state and in this country. That's what I was hearing. That's what I was campaigning.
Thank you. So and then she goes on to say, I'm not here to fight bathroom war issues or whatever. We've heard enough, but I think, the correct response. I'm not here for this. I'm here to do the business of the American people. I'm not going to fall into the trap of this thirsty woman who wants attention. That's what she's saying. I think it was a good way to respond.
It was. Look, the ad did hurt us. And yeah, I don't think it helps to go super extreme. And I think that
I mean, in response to Nancy Mace, yes, you're right. The ad did hurt. It was very effective.
Yeah. And so that was too extreme a position, demanding that professional sports not have any choice but to admit trans women is too extreme. And so, and I know that some people on our side think you have to go maximalist every time. No, it doesn't help your cause at all. It makes you look unreasonable. So when we get to a fight that we need to win on things like bathrooms, so that that trans people across the country are not haunted and hunted whenever they're going to a bathroom, this is the stuff we got to win on. So, and this is where we should draw the line. But she's right overall that people cared about and voted for the economy much more than anything else. But most of all, she's right that it's the Republicans in this case that started identity politics and that started the culture wars, right? They went looking for an unpopular position on trans issues because they wanted to attack trans people. They wanted to attack the LGBTQ community so they can go, ew, God, don't vote for those people. They're with trans, right? And so let's be honest about what happened there. So the Republicans who claim that they hate the culture wars or identity politics, bullshit. That's exactly what that ad was.
Yeah. Cenk, so I'm a little bit concerned about you because usually you're like on fire. There's smoke coming out of your ears. Your eyes are red and whatever. But when you come on my show, like, you don't give me any of that. You're like just a sort of normal, I don't know, level-headed guy. What is it, just early there in California?
No, you're the problem, Don. It's because you're asking reasonable questions and we're having a reasonable conversation. Yeah. When I blow my top, it's because some asshat is saying completely crazy things and won't let me finish a sentence. That's what I get the most mad.
Yeah. Well, Cenk, we appreciate you. We thank you for. I always say, Cenk, thank you for you pave the way for people who are sort of centrist, left or right in this a whole streaming thing that we do. So I would like to give you your flowers and thank you for that. And thank you for being an example. We don't always agree. Sometimes you come on. I mean, I would like you to come and have your smoke coming out of your ears sometime, and that's okay. And I'll come on and do the same. But if I don't see you or talk to you before then, have a happy Thanksgiving and say hello to your nephew, who I love watching as well, is doing a great job. Thank you, Cenk.
All right, I will. Happy Thanksgiving, brother.
Thank you very much. Cenk Uygur, everybody. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching, everyone. Make sure you hit the like button. It helps us with the algorithm. And also, we'd love for you to become a subscriber. So hit that button, too. We're live every day at 10 a.m. Eastern Time and 5 p.m. Eastern, so there's plenty of content.